Okay, so provided that you have done a 5 by 6 inch box with a 1 by 1 inch grid on top of it, you have labeled the columns alphabetically and the rows numerically, and then drawn what you've seen in each box, or we called this using the grid to draw. And you see both the hands, the controller, and the cord, and the buttons on the controller. You are going to now erase your grid, okay? Because the only reason that we have a grid is so that we can proportionally put things on a piece of paper. We've already done that. Now we don't need it. So you are going to take an eraser of your choice, whether it be on the end of a pencil or whether it be some sort of eraser that you have at home. And you are going to start erasing the grid only. Okay, our value scale is over here still. I've done nothing with that. Okay, so I'm making sure that I do not erase any part of my drawing. Now, you guys were asked to do this grid very, very lightly, and this is because we always end up erasing a grid. You never want to see a grid in your final drawing. So, you are using this time right now to erase your entire grid, just like I'm doing. Okay, if you end up erasing some of your drawing, you can go back and sort of just lightly fill it back in. Okay, if you can still see some parts where the grid is, it's okay, we can work with that, just as long as you have tried to erase every part of it. But like in some spots, like right here, I may have done it too hard. We'll fix that later. Okay, if not, you know, just try to erase maybe a little bit harder to get that off of there. Okay, so your next step is we are going to do something called setting a ground. Now, what you are going to do is grab your pencil and kind of in a medium tone, you are going to evenly color across your entire 5 by 6 inch rectangle. Okay, I'm not doing it unevenly like that. I'm keeping it at an even tone. I'm keeping it at an even shade, and not scribbling across my paper. Okay, you kind of want to make sure that you don't go so hard that you're going to lose this drawing. If you start to lose it, just go back in and slightly put it back in. We never want to see an outline in the end, so that right now is just to help you be able to see it later. All right, so I'm putting, oh, kind of lost that right there. Again, we call this setting a ground. We're giving it a nice, even silvery tone so that we have an even middle ground to work with. You're gonna make sure you leave no spots untouched. Okay, again, if you can notice, you can see that I still can see that drawing through there. That's the point. We don't want to lose this drawing. Okay, and as I'm going along, I've shaded in the same direction the entire time. Your next step is you're going to take a dry paper towel, just a regular old paper towel, a napkin, anything you can find, and you're going to smudge this all in, okay? Also, making sure right now that you're not losing your drawing. I can still see mine, so I'm not too worried about it. But if you swipe across and you start to lose it, you're going to have to come back in and sort of just lightly plug those lines in. Okay, just as I'm doing here. Now, if I look at my value scale, hold on, let me plug some of these lines back in. If I look at my value scale off to the side here, I'm kind of seeing an even tone, maybe even this one. Okay, so when I refer to these, I'll just say, that I think that my ground is probably at a 4. Okay, it's an even silvery tone. That's a good base, because now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the actual photo and we're going to decide what areas we need to add maybe a 7 to make it darker. I would say when I'm looking at this, my darkest value is probably this chord right here. So I'm going to assume that's my 7, and I'm going to come on the chord, and only in the areas that it's darkest, I'm going to add my 7. Okay, I see a little highlight right there in the photo. So I'm not going to draw that part as a 7. I'm going to leave it at a 4 for now. Okay, and as I'm looking at the chord, I don't really see any more. So I'm going to continue on and add this as I see it. My darkest value, my 7. Okay, and as you go on, you are going to pull out some of the different values that you see in this. I would say when I'm looking at this, my hands, well, we'll start with the background. So the background is significantly lighter than everything else. I'm going to take my eraser, and even though you just set this ground across the entire background, it's going to give everything sort of a uniform look, which is the reason we didn't leave it, just the white of the paper. So you are going to go through and start erasing for your ones. So at this point, we have now worked on our 1s, our 7s, and our 4s. But we have 6, 5, and 3 to keep adding. So what I want you guys to do is you are going to, after you're done erasing this, you are going to look at the photograph of the hands. that I have on Schoology. There's a black and white copy in there. And I would like you guys to start adding all of the different values that you see. The point is you are trying to recreate the drawing as you see it. Okay, so let me finish. Oops. And if you ever accidentally erase something, sort of smudge it back in, redraw it a little bit. Now, as I'm going along, I'm trying to also erase that outline that we kind of made along the edge of the hand. You never, ever, ever want to see an outline in a drawing. It flattens the image, and that's not the style that we're going for. Okay, we are trying to recreate this in a fairly realistic way. There are some styles like animation, but that's not what we're focusing on in this class. So, we work always to eliminate the outlines on everything. So I never want you guys to turn in a drawing where you see a very heavy outline. Okay, instead, we're going to use the different values next to each other to create kind of an outline. But we're not actually ever going to put an outline in there. And what I mean by that is, hold on, if you look at the value of the value, meaning the shading or what you have on your value scale, the value of the controller versus the value in the background, you can see the controller because it's a different value than the background is. So it almost creates its own barrier without having a hard outline there. I hope that makes sense. So what you're going to do now that we have the 7 and the 1, is you're going to keep looking at this, and you're going to keep plugging in all the different values that you see. So right here, I see a separation between values. This is lighter than this is. So I'm going to come on my hand over here, and one way to get something lighter in a drawing is we're going to erase that area exactly the way that we see it. Okay, and maybe the first time it doesn't work. Maybe you have to come back and sort of touch it up a little, and that's okay. So I've erased in the area that I saw in the picture was lighter, and now I'm going to shade in the area that I think is darker. Okay, I do use a little blending tool and just sort of touch up those areas. You can use one if you'd like, or you can just keep it the shade that you see of the pencil. Okay, and you're going to do that for the entire drawing. You're going to plug in your dark values and your light values so that in the end you get a recreation of this photograph in a drawing format. Okay, and my example is right here. Okay, turn it sideways so that you can see the entire thing. But all I've done is I've started in the same manner that you have. I have plugged in my dark values, I've erased for my highlights, and I've really studied the actual photograph that I see. Because the point was to recreate this drawing, or this photograph, into a drawing. The only way you can do that is by plugging in your different values at in different places.